Good afternoon, Mr. McGeorge.
Hello, good afternoon.
Would you introduce yourself? Just tell us your name and your DOC number for the record.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Kenneth McGeorge. My DOC number is 515347.
All right, Mr. McGeorge, and you can see, I believe, on your screen, everybody who's participating, but let me introduce the pardon board to you. I'm Cheryl Renatza. My colleagues on the pardon board this afternoon are Mr. Alvin Roche, Mr. Victor Jones, Mr. Tony Marabella. I'm going to read some identifying information into the record, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Roche as your case has been assigned to him. He'll present your case, ask some questions. We'll hear from the warden, and then we'll hear from everybody who's indicated they want to speak today. At the very end, you'll be allowed to make a statement if you'd like to do so before we reach a decision.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. McGeorge, you're here before the pardon board this afternoon. You're asking for a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced on October 12th, 2006 to life for a second-degree murder conviction out of St. Tammany. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. McGeorge. How are you?
I am well. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Mr. McGeorge, I'm going to enter some information into the record, do a little presentation, ask you some questions. Sit back, relax. We're going to have a conversation. If any of the information that I enter into the record is incorrect, would you please correct me as necessary, okay?
Okay.
Madam Chairman, before us this afternoon, we have Kenneth McGeorge, DOC number 515347, is here this afternoon seeking a recommendation for a commutation of sentence for the offense of second-degree murder. He's currently 54 years old. At the time of the offense, he was 35. Excuse me. He's been incarcerated for approximately 18 and a half years. He is a first felony offender with 7 arrests on his adult record. 4 of those arrests are violent in nature. He was on probation and it was terminated unsatisfactorily in March 2002, about 3 months before this present offense. What were you on probation for, Mr. McGeorge?
I don't recall it being
Let me see if I can find out. 1 second. In May of 2000, you were placed on 2 years probation in the 22nd JDC for the possession of marijuana. You remember that?
No, sir.
And the court terminated your supervision on March 5th, 2002 at a revocation hearing, and it was terminated unsatisfactorily. Of course, that was almost 19 years ago, so you probably don't remember. You are incarcerated for the murder of your drug dealer during a drug deal in Beta Springs, Louisiana. First, you say the drug dealer tried to rob you. Then you changed your story and said that you shot the dealer. and then threw him out the car. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, sir.
You appealed your conviction, and that appeal was denied. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to read a portion of your application, Mr. McGeorge, because I found it very, very impressive, the things that you have accomplished in 18 years of incarceration. And you stated, and this is your words, throughout my incarceration, I have participated in and facilitated many courses, faith-based, such as Experiencing God, Mind of Christ, Step by Step through the Old Testament, Step by Step through the New Testament, Living the Christian Values, and many, many more courses. Currently, you state that you're a trustee and that you are a DOC certified academic tutor. You're also a certified National Center for Construction, Education, and Research, and you are a vocational instructor, a peer minister, and an assistant coordinator of the transitional program, coordinator of Men in Change, and you continue to aid Elaine Hunt as a transitional specialist in facilitating the reentry program. And I imagine you have been transferred some other way, but at the time you wrote this, you were living in Box 7 and you were a mentor. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and I still am.
You still am? Okay. And you are a transitional specialist, and you actually try to change the lives of the youth on a daily basis. While at Angola, you did the same thing. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And it just amazes me the amount of responsibility that you have and the things that you have accomplished in 18 years of incarceration. The numerous vocational certificates from the National Center for Construction, Education, and Research are endless. I just want to mention one or two other things. You worked as a volunteer for the hospice program, is that correct?
Yes, I did in the past at Angola, sir.
Yeah, and you were responsible for a nighttime GED program called Bible Telling Literacy Program, where over 30 inmates earned their GED in 18 months.
Yes, sir, we did. We started that in 2011, and it's still in operation today, sir.
Okay, so I thought it was noteworthy. I just wanted to enter into the record that you have spent your 18 years facilitating, teaching, and basically advancing your education, both in higher education and vocational education. So let's continue with the presentation. Opposition in your case. Opposition in your case comes from the district attorney office in the 22nd JDC, the St. Tammany Sheriff's Office, and you have victim opposition also. But after reading your case, about 5 days later, one of the victims that shared that she was opposed to your early release sent another letter in, and she withdrew her opposition because when she asked her son, who's the son of the victim, one of the victims, he stated that he did not want to send anything in. That was not his job. It was the law's responsibility to decide whether or not you would be commuted. And because her son had the attitude, and she stated in her letter that you could always learn a lesson, and sometimes you learn a lesson from your children. So that victim has withdrew her opposition, but you still have opposition from the other victim's family. As I said before, you have 7 arrests, and 4 of those arrests are violent. Do you remember the domestic abuse charge that you had in 1999?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that, because I'm always concerned about a domestic abuse charge and you pled guilty.
Yes, sir. That incident took place between me and my wife's ex-husband, Mr. Bernie Willie. That was a fight that ensued. I did plead guilty. The charges were dropped to a fine. I spent a night in jail before being bonded out, and I made my apology to him. And subsequently, I believe I received a $50 fine. And the charges were dropped for the domestic violence. So it wasn't against my wife, sir.
So good, and you have a very good memory. The sentence was $50 fine or 15 days in jail. You have a very good memory. Okay. Your risk assessment is low, which tells us that you have a low probability of reoffending. On your progress report, it states that you have good family support. You've completed anger management, you've completed substance abuse, and other programs that you completed are living in balance, personal development, problem solving, money management, and the reentry. Which one of those programs did you get more? Which program did you get more information from, and which one helped you the most?
I would probably say that personal development probably helped me the most because I had to work on myself from the very beginning. I knew what I was before this crime was committed. I understood the core issues that I have in life, and by working on me and working on myself and finding out what my core issues were and beginning to resolve those issues is what made me become the person that I am today. And it was just a constant effort of always looking at where I was and where I wanted to become. And I knew exactly from the day I stepped foot in jail what I had done. And I knew I didn't want to do that or be like that person any longer. And thus you see the record, as you reflected earlier on, is why I am the way I am today. And I enjoy the personal development programs that we've had because I've always found them to aid me in finding them little things that I'm always working on.
Ms. McGeorge, and I'm going to stop my presentation now because I just had a thought. You were what? I said 35 years old when you committed this crime?
Yes, sir.
You had a full-time job.
Yes, sir.
And you had a family.
Yes, sir.
And you made pretty good money.
Yes, sir.
when did you start using drugs?
Oh, I could tell you the exact. I had a friend of mine that asked me to be the best man at his wedding, and around 1998, and subsequently he asked me. We was at a bar on the West Bank. He asked me if I wanted to do a line of cocaine. I said yes. I went in the bathroom. I did a line of cocaine, and ultimately, what happened was it didn't happen immediately, but I started using periodically, and subsequently my cocaine addiction became, more than periodically, and then it turned to opiates, synthetic opiates, and I began to have long stretches of inebriation, and it got worse and worse until subsequently I was in jail, incarcerated.
So you were in your early 30s when you started using drugs.
Approximately 31, yes, sir.
Mr. McGeorge, question. When's the last time you used drugs?
The night that I was locked up, sir. That would be June 14th, 2002.
Thank you, Mr. McGeorge. Mr. McGeorge, I have a category down here, classes, and the list is yay long. You are a craft instructor, am I correct?
Yes, sir, for multiple crafts.
For multiple crafts. You certified as a supervisor.
Yep.
You worked with heavy crane equipment.
Yes, sir.
You had a great job since 1990 when you worked for, I think it was barges and decks.
Yes, Great Lakes dredging dock. I've always worked on the water.
Yeah. And basically you've had a good job with heavy duty equipment throughout your young life. And then at Angola, you operated heavy equipment on the crew at Angola.
Yes, right after getting to Angola, I run cranes for approximately about 6 months up there.
So basically, if it wasn't for this one-time deal where a close friend of yours invited you to do something that you didn't usually do, it landed you in prison.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Disciplinary issues. Mr. McGeorge has had only 2 disciplinary write-ups during his 18 years of incarceration. Both of them was in 2014. One was for contraband, and the other was a 30W. First of all, let me ask you, what was the contraband?
Contraband was a bag of freeze-dried coffee, 1 bag of freeze-dried coffee, and 1 pack of brand new batteries that I was attempting to take to a shark unit at Camp J.
Okay, and always very interested when I see a 30, and that could be almost anything, but what was a 30W about in August of 2014?
Ultimately, the 30W was for doing my job. I was working for Miss Easley, Miss Anne Marie Easley in the education department, and I had it was proven, and I had tried to deal with that, but it was proven that I had confidential information for a CO5 report, which was my job, to obtain all the records from the out camps for all the students' time, and I would put it on a spreadsheet, turn it over to her for the CO5 report. I subsequently sat 77 days in Camp J and was taken out of Camp J and put back in the general population at Bass Dorm after 77 days.
Thank you, sir. And sometimes when you do your job and do it well, sometimes you have to pay the price. I'm just going to quickly, well, I'm just going to say that under vocational training and certification, there are 5 or 6 pages of certificates, awards, and education achievements. And it's amazing what one man has achieved in 18 years. Okay. Is Captain Honeycutt in the room or Mr. Swear? Risk.
Mr. Roche, we're at Hunt right now.
We're still at Hunt.
We still at Warden Hooper. Would you like to make any comments? Warden Hooper, would you like to make any comments?
Yeah, I keep getting dropped. I don't know what you said last, but he does have 2 disciplinary reports in 2014. Looks like, you know, like he told you, he was telling the truth. They knew what he was doing pretty much. They recommended a job change on him on that last write-up. He is a trustee here. He's been working with the mentors. Instead of living in a trustee dorm, he chose to live down there with them. He is making a difference here, and he's been doing a good job. No issues.
Thank you, Warden Hooper. Mr. McGeorge, and I'm going to close my presentation by asking you a question, and I want you to honestly answer this question. There's 3 reasons for incarceration. I think the first reason is rehabilitation. I don't think there's any question of whether or not you've done enough work, completed enough courses, did enough faith-based. You've done a tremendous amount of work. There's no question about the rehabilitation. The second reason is isolation. Isolate the bad guys from the good guys. And I don't really think you're a bad guy. The third reason for incarceration is retribution, punishment for the crime that you committed. You took the life of a 23-year-old young man. And then while trying to commit 2 other felonies, you were doing an illegal drug deal. And the family of the victim said he had $800 to $1,000 on him at the time he left the house and got in the car with you. And you were also charged with armed robbery. Do you think 18 years of incarceration is sufficient for the murder of a 23-year-old young man?
Well, sir, I want to say this. I've had a lot of years to ponder all of that. And I'll say that I don't think that there's any amount of time that could ever replace the loss of a loved one. You know, I've constantly thought about the fact that what I've done to the certain family, directly and indirectly, is reprehensible. You know, the mere fact that his nieces and nephews will never get to see him grow up. He'll never be able to be there for his mother. His brother will never, and sister will never get to experience the life with him. And And I wish I could take that back. I wish I could do it over. I wish I could change that. And I'm extremely sorry for the fact that I can't, I can't do that. And I am deeply sorry for what I have done to that family, to my own family, and also into the community. I know I affected everybody. One decision that I made a long time ago has caused a plethora of decisions that I wish I could change. So today, all I can ask is for some mercy. I'm not asking for justice. And
Mr. McGeorge, thank you for your thank you for your honesty. I enjoyed talking with you. I think your interview was the best interview of the day. And Madam Chairman, that concludes my interview and presentation.
thank you, Mr. Rocher.
All right. At this time, Mr. Marabella?
Mr. McGeorge, I've got a couple of questions. How old were you when you did that line of cocaine at that wedding?
Approximately 31 years old.
And how old were you when you got arrested for this charge?
35.
And I believe you testified that basically from that night until that time, you were pretty much hung up on drugs.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You started out with cocaine, and what did you move to? You said opiates, and what else?
Synthetic opiates. Yeah. Oxycontins, Dilaudid, morphine.
Do you consider that during that time frame that you were a drug addict?
Oh, absolutely.
Did you ever attempt to get treatment during that time?
Yes, sir.
What kind of treatment did you try to get?
I went to the Slidell Psychiatric Ward and checked myself into a 10-day detox center. I
Okay.
think around 2000. Yes, sir.
Okay. And did that work?
For a short period of time.
Okay.
Very short period of time.
And what were the reasons for your relapses?
I wasn't willing to make the true decision inside of myself to stop using drugs. I wanted to do it for other reasons other than what I really needed to do it for.
Do you consider yourself, as you sit there today, a drug addict?
I'm a recovering drug addict. Yes, sir.
And what does that mean to you?
That means that I have to make a decision each and every day not to use drugs.
And how do you help yourself? What have you learned while you've been in prison? What tools have you learned that's going to give you the courage and the support that you need to make those decisions?
First of all, I've entered into different programs. I've been in the 12-step program, Celebrate Recovery program, AA program. I sponsored and started the RDAP program in Angola for the reentry program there. So, and I have participated in all these programs as well as try to get them started in other facilities to help others. I don't struggle with that. I don't struggle with the addiction like I used to years ago. 19 years has gone by. I haven't used no drugs. So it doesn't bother me because it's still everywhere you go. I mean,
well, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
If you just kind of didn't care anymore and went out and started for just the hell of it using cocaine one night, you think you'd be back where you were 20 years ago?
Yeah, if I made that mindset, absolutely.
Well, and that's what I'm worried about, because one slip will do that to you. Yeah. So tell me how important AA meetings are to you.
Well, the meetings are important to me because of the fact that I can go there and share how I feel and get it. And if I have any struggles, I have somebody that I can talk to. I have a loving wife of 30 years that I can be honest with now, where I had problems before being honest. Within my drug addiction, I didn't understand how honesty really played out with that. I was worried about her leaving.
Mr. McGeorge, let me just tell you the reason for my questions, okay? I know you don't know anything about me. For 14 years, I ran a drug court. I was a judge, and I ran a drug court. And I saw many people just like you. Excellent jobs, no reason to be using drugs. All of a sudden, they got hooked on drugs and couldn't stop. It's not a choice, it's a disease. And just choice alone or a decision not to use isn't going to help you. You need to be in a position to where you've got a support group at all times. I have friends, I have people who've gone through my drug court today who've been sober for 12 and 13 years on the streets that go to meetings 3 times a week because they need them. Otherwise, they're going to fall back into the same patterns. Do you understand and do you believe it's that significant for you to go to those AA meetings and make sure that you continue your support?
Yes, sir. I do believe that. And that's why I did start Celebrate Recovery here, and I do go to Celebrate Recovery. Of course, we've been on a pandemic for the last 9 months, and we haven't been able to do that. But that is something that I've been instrumental in being a participant in, as well as a coordinator over, ever since I came here to Elaine Hunt Correctional Center. I did do them classes there before, but I've always stayed in them classes. So
I appreciate what you've done for others. I'm more concerned today about what you've done for you, okay?
Sure.
You've helped, obviously, a lot of people. You've helped yourself. And I believe that right now, you've got a lot of structure. If you get out of prison, structure's kind of falling away. You can do kind of whatever you want. You can slip up. I'm like Mr. Roche. I think you have done everything to deserve this opportunity. I just want to make sure you understand the significance of what you need to do to stay sober. I see Mr. Myers here, and I know that they're going to help you with those things and work with you on those things. So I just wanted to make those points to you. It seems like you really got it down, but you are, in fact, an addict, and you will always be an addict recovering, and I hope you continue to recover. Thank you very much for listening to me.
thank you, Mr. Marabella.
Mr. Jones.
Yes, Mr. McGeorge,
Yes,
how
sir.
did you come about to meet Mr. Certain on that date? How did you pick him out?
That was just by accidents before that. He was it wasn't I don't even remember how I was introduced to him, but I had bought drugs from him in the past.
You had bought drugs from this young man in the past?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. And I don't have any questions. We'd like to hear from the people who are here with us today who want to speak in support, and we'd like to start with Bishop Taylor.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, everybody's talking about how all the classes Kenny had. They seem to forget we're Eastern Orthodox or Orthodox Catholic, okay? And you do not just walk in and say, I want to join the church. It's another class, it's another school. Well, Kenny also is a subdeacon, all right? And he's studying for his diaconate to be a deacon in the church. Now, this is while he's doing all of these other classes, he's been doing these corresponding with me. Now, I mean, I've, talked to him some on the phone. I've actually, been to Angola. I've been to Elaine Hunt, and, we've talked through some things, through confession, this, that, and the other. So, he has, how shall we say, he's got a plan. He's got a good structure. All right. He actually plans on doing some of these classes at the church, for the community. So it's not like he plans on just, getting out, getting a job and going on with his life. He plans on getting out, getting a job, going on with his life, but also taking care of his church and taking care of the community. I mean, my Archbishop had started this back in St. Tammany, when he was first incarcerated. So it's not like we've just known this man 5 or 10 years. We've, known him through the whole process. We've been able to see the change from 18 years ago to now. So that's pretty much all I wanted to add is, he's got a place to stay. He's actually got 3 or 4 jobs, is whether he wants to go back to heavy equipment. He also got certified in HVAC, which is air conditioning heating. And actually, my first cousin owns a company, has been around for 50 years. His father gave it to him. So, I mean, he's got a job. He's got everything here. And if you're worried about being, accountability, I am a bishop, but I'm also 6'2", 240, and I've been a fireman 25 years. I was actually a constable for 18. So I don't think we have to worry too much about him trying to go back to drugs. If he does, I'll be sending him back to you.
There you go. All right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you spending time with us today. Mr. Myers and the Parole Project.
Thank you. Kerry Myers, Deputy Director, Louisiana Parole Project. First, I'd like to say the Parole Project will provide Mr. McGeorge with our full support of services should he get a favorable recommendation and he reach the point where he becomes parole eligible and is released. Certainly after 20 or 20 plus years of incarceration by then, that we understand what someone who served a sentence that long requires as far as the needs once they're released. And we believe that our program meets Mr. McGeorge's needs. And we know that he's going to be a willing participant. We've discussed this with him on multiple occasions. And he understands that and he needs that transition. On a more personal note, I've known Mr. McGeorge just about the entire length of his incarceration. I can tell you that from the first time I met him, I was kind of astounded at how sobering his recognition of his actions, his remorse, he was not in denial about anything. And he immediately focused on trying to make himself a better person. He's also an example of what addiction can do. It knows no lines as far as economic class, race, gender, age. Addiction can affect anyone at any time. And he recognizes that, and he's taken the steps that he needs to, and will continue to take the steps that he needs to make sure that addiction is something that he is always in recovery. So I would say that I believe that Mr. McGeorge has, and he will continue to do it as long as he is there, but for however long it takes. But I think that he's done and shown that he has recognized his crime, and he's taken full responsibility for it. The remorse that he has is real, and that he presents no risk to public safety should he be released. And Parole Project stands here for him.
All right, thank you. Miss Mary McGeorge, we'd like to hear from you. Can you take your microphone off of mute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As my husband said, we've been married for 30 years. He's my best friend. We always did everything together. We went hunting, we went fishing, we did this with the kids, we played golf. Everything was together. When he started the drugs, I was kind of floored that he was doing these drugs because I had no past experience with anything like this. We did therapy together. And like you say, he went to substance abuse care, for 10 days. Let's see. And I still stay with him. And some of the reasons I've stayed with him is that I do love him and I do support him because I know what kind of man he was before we were married. and I know what a kind of man he is now. And I've seen him go from the bottom to the top. This is a man I can be proud of in his accomplishments. Yes, I know there still will be troubles and, issues out here when he gets out, but I have stood by him this long. I plan to stay by him the rest of his life, and I do need him at home. It'd be living alone is kind of hard. So we both been in prison these last years, and that's all I can say.
All right, thank you. We appreciate you being here with us today. So now we'll hear from the victims, and can we start with Ms. Sarton?
Hello.
Hi.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that you accomplished everything that you accomplished to, be the man that you feel like you need to be.
Yeah, Ms. Sarton, you need to address your remarks to the board, not to Mr. McGeorge. Okay?
Okay. So if I'm speaking, what am I speaking about? Basically, my brother, about him being 20 years old for the record, not 23. And he was like the best big brother. You did a lot of damage, My mom still can't face you.
Address your remarks to the board. You're talking to the board, not to Mr. McGeorge.
Okay, well, basically, I'm actually nervous. I don't know. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to say. It is basically hard.
Yeah, we want to know your position on his application. How do you feel about the application he submitted? Obviously you're in opposition, is that right?
Yes, and I feel like I don't know, I can't even speak. Can we go to someone else, please, right now?
Sure.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sir, introduce yourself.
I feel he did a lot. Okay.
What's your name?
He did a lot of stuff to get out.
He's Junior Brown. If that's what you want me to do, I'm Janala Certain. I'm Darnell Certain.
Yeah.
I'm 32 years old.
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
And I'm okay. What I was saying, I know that the man accomplished a lot of stuff. That's cool, but I still feel he should be locked up because my son ain't here. He can't accomplish nothing. He's gone. He's not. His birthday just passed. It's hurting us right now just because this stuff come up again. We hurting. We're gonna continue to hurt. I'm glad he did what he did. He want to change his life, but he still got to pay for the crime he did. And I feel 18 years ain't enough.
All right, thank you, sir. We appreciate your input. Can we hear from Ms. Sharon Green?
Yes.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Well, I was his fiance at the time, and I feel like he was a loving, caring person, and it took me a while to get myself together too, and like they say, 19 years. Wow. My heart beating fast too right now. It's just so sad, It hurt and affected both sides, And I, like I say, I'm glad, he done what he done to help himself to feel like, he can, be better in society or whatever. But just like y'all say, who knows what he'll do, I feel like we should just wait a minute, We need a little more time, and that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. We did have Sharonda Green. I don't see that they are still with us.
Can I speak now? I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know if I have, but that was my big brother. He was everything to me. He was with me every day. I saw you the night you picked him up. I saw you several times.
Can you speak to the board, ma'am,
And
not to Mr. McGeorge?
That night I never knew if I never knew that was my last time seeing him. And I understand that he accomplished a lot. I just wish my brother could accomplish half of what he accomplished, even to have children. You know, to be here with our mom, to be here with my children. It was very hard to see him the way that he was left. And that's all I can picture. And I understand that you have children. And I understand he has a family. I understand he has a wife. He has more than my brother ever had. All my brother had was life, parents, siblings, a fiance. And he was trying to be half of what you was. And you took that. And it's to the point to where I live it every day. I have anxiety. I suffer from depression. I take medication. I don't let my children out my sight because I'm scared they're going to run into the boogeyman like you. I never thought.
Certain, speak to us. Speak to us. The board.
I don't feel like enough time. I don't feel like it's enough time, man. I have mercy. In 1 year, 1 day, I will have enough mercy to where I would like for you to be where you want to be. But right now, I don't think it's the time for him to be free. Like, I can't.
We appreciate it. I'm glad you were able to share those remarks with us. And I think that concludes the remarks. We don't have time. We've run out of time and for Sharonda. So we'll ask Mr. McGeorge for his statement. Do you have a statement, sir?
I'm here, but I can't.
Mr. McGeorge?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a statement you'd like to make?
I would just like to say that, yes, I have accomplished a lot, but one of the things that I want everyone to know is that what I have accomplished is what I also want to be able to take back out into the community to help these situations not to continue to take place, where I can help reach some of these at-risk youth, so I can help reach some people that had the same problems that I've had, and be a mentor to them, be able to witness to them, be able to explain where that leads to, because I understand where it leads to. It's only two places, and it's not good and it's not healthy. And I do think that I now have the experience to go back out there and be an asset into the community, to be able to work with the sheriff's department and the local DA's office to help them to maybe mitigate some of the same problems that they're having right now from some of my experiences, and to be there for them, to call upon, to help talk to some of these young guys. And I do think that I could be an asset in the community as well as I have been in here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Roche, are you prepared to vote?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for a brief executive session.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roche, second by Mr. Jones for executive session. Could we get the roll call, please?
Ms. Renatza?
Yes.
Mr. Roche?
Yes.
Mr. Marabella?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
We'll be in executive session to discuss confidential matters. We'll be right back. Stand by. Okay, I think we got everybody back in. Okay, we are back in regular session. We are prepared to vote. We'll start with Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is probably my hardest decision of the day, because there are mitigating circumstances. There's victims, the victim's family has suffered over the years. A sister has lost a big brother. A father has lost a son. Aunts and uncles lost a nephew. And I do realize the pain and the suffering this family has gone through almost 19 years. But how long is enough? How long of a time before the pain goes away? I would like to think it would be infinity. It never goes away. Then I must consider the volume of work that Mr. McGeorge has done over the last 18 and a half, 19 years. The classes that he's facilitated, the mentorship, helping young offenders, working with the transition program, working with the reentry program. And the transition plan that he has 3 or 4 jobs. He has had a good disciplinary record. He has positive remarks from Warden Hooper. He has all the elements that goes with a person who is rehabilitated. For that reason, I'm going to recommend to the panel that we commute Mr. McGeorge's sentence to 99 years with parole eligibility after serving 21 years. That is my recommendation, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. McGeorge, you have done a tremendous amount of work. There's no question of that. The crime that you committed is a horrible one, and we can see today the victims that have just suffered and continue to suffer as a result of that. If I thought my vote would bring back their loved one, I would vote never to let you out. But that isn't the way it works. We can't ever bring back the person who is deceased. What we need to concentrate on is to try to do the right thing for everybody involved. And what we need to look at today is who you are today and what you have done. And you have done a tremendous amount of work to be where you are and be before this board today. That does not make the pain any less to the victim's family in this case. Any number of years, as Mr. Roche has pointed out, isn't going to make a whole lot of difference, because I think we suffer forever when we lose a loved one. It eases somewhat, but it never goes away. And you will forever live with what you've done. I agree with Mr. Roche, and I am going to vote the same way to recommend that your sentence be commuted to 99 years with parole eligibility after 21 years.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Mr. Jones?
Yes, Mr. McGeorge, I also commend you for your efforts and what you've done since you've been incarcerated. You have what I call made the best out of a bad situation. But I concur with Mr. Roger and Mr. Marabella, and my vote today going to be to commute your sentence 99 years with parole eligibility 21 years.
Thank you.
And Mr. McGeorge, I also concur with my colleagues. My vote is the same for the same reasons. So you've received a unanimous vote. So we will make the recommendation to the governor that your sentence be commuted to 99 years and that you become parole eligible after serving 21 years.
I would like to thank the board very much for their recommendation.
All right. And I think that concludes our business this afternoon at Hunt. So we'll adjourn at Hunt at 3:12 and move to our next facility.
So that entire hearing for me just felt very off. I didn't really see a time when they at least asked him, so what happened that night? What did you do? How did it go down? It was because there are a lot of unknowns, and we'll go through the information of the case. You know, he had a trial. They found him guilty. And they kind of just skipped over that. It was more like, oh, he's so great. He's so awesome. I mean, Mr. O'Shea didn't seem to have that much empathy for the family. And that was my takeaway. Was it because he was a dealer? So it's just not the same type of thing. You don't need to serve 25 years because you're a dealer. I don't know. But I have a bad taste in my mouth the way that they just seemed to take it easy on him. And yeah, he had a great interview, and yeah, he served his time really well, but still get down to the facts, have him tell the truth about what happened. You know, it was a commutation hearing. They recommended it to the governor. As far as I know, he hasn't had his parole hearing yet, which is quite odd. So it's possible he has had it and we just missed it. I ran his DOC in our records where we have thousands of lines thanks to Richard, and it didn't pop up. And they're jamming in all the commutation hearings in this final few weeks. And if he's not on the list, then somehow the governor might not have approved it. I don't know. But if he does, we'll see his parole hearing, and maybe at the parole hearing they'll ask these questions. But what we have here is the defendant had an ongoing problem with narcotics. On several occasions, the defendant had purchased narcotics from Darnell, who was known to sell them. On the evening of June 9th, 2002, the defendant picked up Darnell certain from his home. The defendant was driving his wife's car, which, if I got that right, his wife is still married with him. That is just that. Did I miss that? It's the same wife, right? That's something else, huh? Till death do us part, right? Darnell was sitting in the front passenger seat. After driving around, the defendant drove Low Davis Road towards Louisiana Highway. At the sign, Highway 59, the defendant, all of a sudden, so he's driving with him, and then he just pulls out a gun and he shoots him in the left side of the head. So is that sudden, that violent, that brutal? It's just a complete assassination. He's driving with him, boom, done. That's sick. Now, he claims in his defense that other things happened, and that's why I thought it was important that they actually ask him what happened. I mean, to do that, that's not even trying to rob him. That's first degree. That's making up your mind. You're taking his life. The handgun the defendant used was a .22 revolver, which was a family heirloom that he stole from his wife. The autopsy protocol on Darnell states that the cause was the gunshot wound to the head and the manner was hung. The defendant, now his whole genius plan, right, fell apart real quick. The guy's like, the defendant drove about 1/2 a mile to a farm off of T. Pratt's Road, a newly built railroad at the time. The defendant removed Darnell from his car, dragged him into the woods. He left Darnell there and drove back. He then threw the gun out the window. The defendant then drove to a friend's house. His friend was not home, but the friend's roommate, Kip, was there. The defendant asked Kip for some towels to wipe off his seats. So the defendant began hosing out the interior of his car. Now, someone in the area is like, why is this dude at night hosing out his car, and called the cops? Yeah, that's how quickly this thing fell apart. So the police showed up. It's 8:30 at night. I guess 8:30 at night to clean your car. What date was it again? Yeah, it's a February. It's dark out. Deputy Day testified at trial that according to his testimony, upon observing the defendant spraying the interior of his car with a water hose at night, Deputy Day asked the defendant to step away from the car. Deputy Day looked inside the car and asked the defendant what happened. The defendant said that he was trying to clean it out. The Deputy Day observed blood splatter on the passenger side door panel and asked the defendant what it was. The defendant said that it was ketchup, the classic ketchup story. Wow, the guy can't get any more brilliant than this. It was ketchup. Ketchup pack burst, officer. I'm sorry, drunk. I am not, officer. Yep, ketchup. Where did I lose? Okay. After further conversation, the defendant said that the splatter was jelly instead of ketchup. Shortly thereafter, it's jelly. Ah, yes, jelly, the old jelly problem. So, I'm surprised the police officer just didn't say, oh, it's jelly. Oh, okay, you're right. I'll get on my way now. Shortly thereafter, the defendant's wife arrived at the scene. I'm assuming the same wife. The defendant, after briefly conversing with his wife, approached Deputy Day and informed him that he wanted to change his story. The defendant stated that he did not spill food in his car. He stated that he had been in a Abita nursery subdivision trying to buy narcotics, and his dealer got in the car and tried to rob him at gunpoint. The defendant stated that he grabbed a hammer and hit the man in the head. He was so nervous, but he grabbed the hammer, hit him in the head a couple of times, then opened the passenger side door and pushed the man out the car. Deputy Day turned the scene over to his supervisor and drove over to Nursery Street to see if he could find this alleged man who was struck in the head with the hammer, but he did not find that man, nor any evidence such as blood that would corroborate that story. Try saying corroborate, by the way. Corroborate. The following day, that afternoon, was brought in for questioning by Sergeant Jamie Davis. It's interesting that it was the following day. They didn't even arrest him there, right? St. Tammany's Parish Sheriff's Office. The defendant was not under arrest at this time. The interview was recorded and the audio tape was played for the jury. I mean, you think they could have detained him for different things, but they didn't. In the interview, the defendant told essentially the same fabricated story that he had told the deputy, except for several details. He claimed that he was looking for narcotics and picked up a man he did not know. After the defendant had been driving for a while, the man pulled out a pistol and demanded the defendant's money. The defendant grabbed a homemade chipping hammer from behind the seat and struck the man in the face a couple of times with the hammer. The man began bleeding profusely. The defendant drove to the Nursery Street and pushed the man out of the car. Several days after the interview, Darnell's body was found and the defendant was arrested. Yep. They said that the head was in really bad shape. There was mummification of the upper portion of the body and certain portion of lower extremities. You cannot tell whether the trauma to his face there was no soft tissue to examine. How did that happen so quickly? Sustained gunshot wounds to the left temple and the bullet recovered in the bottom portion of his skull. The results of the toxicology report were negative. No money was found on Darnell's body. Darnell's fiance, Sharon Green, when Darnell left, the defendant had $1,000 on him. Darnell's rap sheet wasn't pretty. He had convictions for aggravated assault with a dangerous weapon, burglary, attempted burglary, and a drug charge. On redirect examination, the prosecutor had Detective Sergeant Hall identify the bill of information. Darnell's aggravated assault charge was indicated that the charge was not null prost. Now, the defendant testified at trial. He had 2 prior convictions, simple possession of Mary J. and simple battery. And that's what they spoke about, right? Where he was, so he had that $50 fine, and then he had his Mary J. He had been, can you imagine this all started in his 30s when his buddy at a wedding said, hey, take this line. And that's, just think about that. It all starts with that one line. And there are some people that first hit does it. And there are some people that it's just, but if you don't know where you fall in that bucket, you are taking a risk, because it didn't take long for him to end up in prison. He admitted that he shot Darnell, but claimed the shooting was in self-defense. He testified that he bought, was that what also, was it Rule 30 that they spoke about? Do we have Rule 30 here? He had a Rule 30 Mr. O'Shea was talking about, right? We actually have the rule book. Rule 30. General prohibited behavior schedule will be the following behaviors which may impair or threaten the security, stability of a unit, or well-being of an employee, visiting, guest, offender, or offender's family. So this might be what they're talking about. He had that list. I think so. Anyways, I digress. So when he took the trial, he said he admitted that he did shoot him, but that he claimed it was in self-defense. He testified that he had bought, and this is again why I thought they should have gone into more detail of what it is he did wrong. The family needs to hear it. He testified that he had bought narcotics occasionally 6 or 7 times on the night of the killing. According to the defendant, he picked him up at his house because he wanted crack. Darnell did not have narcotics on him, so the defendant drove Darnell to 2 houses. Darnell went inside the houses while the defendant waited outside in his car. After leaving the second house, Darnell said they needed to go to Abita. The defendant drove towards Abita Springs. The defendant gave him $90, $50, and $20, 2 20s. Darnell then demanded the rest of the money and told the defendant, if you don't give the rest of the money, I'll pop a cap in your ass. The defendant said that was all he wanted to spend. So Darnell responded, empty the rest of your pockets or before. So here, this is what he's saying at trial that happened, so that it was in self-defense. And again, no one believed him, and he got a life sentence without the possibility of parole, and that's why he has his commutation hearing. I'll put the link in the description. Thank you, Richard. You tell me, did it make a difference? Were they lenient just because he was a dealer? Did they care? Or is it simply just because he's done so well in prison? And he had a really good interview. That's the truth. That waiting period, their executive session, it was over 10 minutes, which is quite a long time. That's up there as a record. But I don't know. You tell me. he is still locked up. As far as we know, the governor has not signed. So there you have it. With that, I'll let you go.